Welcome back to the Daily Quack. Today we're looking at one of my all-time favorite Donald Duck adventure stories from March 1950. It's 4-color number 275, Ancient Persia. This 24-page classic begins with Donald lounging in his hammock. The nephews approach and are clearly freaked out. They've noticed a creepy-looking man going past the house, one who has the strangest look in his eyes. Donald's reply is an absolute classic. What do you mean by a strange look? Pop-eyed, fish-eyed, or bleary? But once the man walks past the house again, Donald sees what the boys mean, and they think he might be a mad scientist, as he is carrying a package of chemicals. The boys want to follow him and see what he's up to, but Donald puts a stop to that, reminding them that curiosity killed the cat. Huey, Dewey, and Louie disobey anyway and head on up to the man's house, the obligatory scary house on the hill. Peeking through the window, they discover that he really is a scientist, as he adds ever more crazy items to his potion, including the dust of a 5,000-year-old beetle and a fraction of a thunderbolt. As he proclaims his success, he thinks he hears snoopers and catches the boys in the act. Time passes and Donald waits at the supper table. Figuring he knows where the boys are, he heads to the old house on the hill. He follows their tracks in the long grass until he's intercepted by the scientist. He tells Donald he'll take him to the boys and leads him around the house. Donald is surprised to see an airplane parked in the backyard, and in a beautiful use of silhouette, the scientist lassos Donald, explaining that he needs him and his nephews as his helpers for his final experiment, before knocking him out. Hours later, the ducks wake up in the hold of a plane. Looking out the window, they realize they're flying over Gibraltar, and are obviously curious as to where they are going and why. Their only answer comes from the scientist, who says that he will soon know the answer to the weirdest riddle of the ancient world, that he will be the first man to turn the hereafter into last week. After passing over many sand-covered ancient ruins, the plane finally touches down on the empty sand, which is supposedly the site of the ancient lost city of Itsa Faka. The disbelieving ducks are forced to start digging for the lost city, as Donald proclaims, "Yesterday I was home among sensible people. Today I'm digging sand in Persia for a crackpot that sees cities under every dune." What a life. But before long, Donald's shovel makes contact with something that clearly isn't sand, and they uncover the lost city of Itsa Faka, a city that disappeared under the drifting sand centuries before the building of the pyramids. The intrigued ducks enter the palace with the scientist, and when Donald remarks that he might be able to find out what he wants to know by reading the hieroglyphics, the scientist responds that he plans on asking the people who live there, as they are still alive. And Donald's response is pure gold. Every time I get to thinking that scientist is pretty sensible, he pops off with some nutty statement that'll put him in the loony bin. After some exploration, the party ends up in the catacombs, where they discover urns filled with the remains of the citizens of Itsa Faka, who were dehydrated while still alive. The scientist finds the urn that contains the royal family, who chose to be dehydrated rather than face public disgrace, although the hieroglyphics don't reveal what that disgrace actually was. While the others were in the catacombs, Huey, Dewey, and Louie have filled the royal bathtub with water, as they were instructed to do. The dried remains of the royal party are poured into the water, and the scientist adds some more of these secret ingredients, including one small part of a thunderbolt. After initially thinking that nothing happened, the ducks start to smell perfume and can suddenly read the ancient writings on the walls. This is due to them inhaling the thought processes of the ancient people as they are coming back to life. Suddenly from the water, two figures emerge, the revived King Nevawaza and his daughter Princess Nita Barasopa, neither of whom seem happy to be there. As it turns out, the disgrace that the royal family was avoiding was that the daughter was supposed to marry Prince Cad Ali Cad, but he left her at the altar. And as fate would have it, Donald turns out to be the spitting image of the aforementioned prince. The scientist's only concern is finding out the secret of how these people dehydrated themselves, so he is of no use in helping Donald out of his predicament. So as usual, it's up to the nephews to save him. They race down to the catacombs to try to find the dehydrated Prince Cad Ali Cad, as Donald is being forced into wedding clothes. The nephews manage to rehydrate the prince just in time to interrupt the wedding, and in the ensuing chaos, Donald and Cad Ali Cad get mixed up, with both of them denying that they are the runaway groom. The king decrees that tomorrow the two ducks will have a fight to the finish, with the survivor marrying his daughter. That night, the boys break who they think is Donald out of jail and hightail it for freedom. Out in the open desert, however, Donald is actually revealed to be the prince, who then takes off into the dunes. Back in Itsa Faka, since Donald is the only remaining duck, it is decreed that he shall marry the princess. As the ceremony gets underway, the scientist reappears to announce that he has finally discovered the secret of turning people to dust, and he plans to wipe out everyone on the planet so that he can have the world to himself. Donald thwarts his mad scheme by breaking the urn and releasing the dehydrating vapor. The king and his retinue are returned to dust, and even the scientist succumbs in his mad dash to freedom. Out in the desert, having had enough of the modern world, Cad Ali Cad races back to Itsa Faka and enters the palace just in time to disappear into dust once more. The nephews wait outside for the vapor to clear so they can go in to search for Donald, but there's no need. Having hidden the royal bathtub, Donald avoided the fate of the others, and our story ends with a joyous reunion and a return to normal. This is easily one of Barks' best adventure stories. I remember reading this as a kid and just loving the creepy house on the hill and the exotic locale of Itsa Faka, not to mention the thought of discovering ancient civilizations just by digging in the desert with a shovel. Barks had such a way of making the world seem very vast and mysterious, and that adventure could be found anywhere. The artwork is just spectacular, and some of the panels are so well laid out. He was just an incredible storytelling talent. And of course, there are the usual Barks sight gags, like the title of the book the professor is reading, Up and At 'em, which of course is the catchphrase of Radioactive Man from The Simpsons. This issue is filled up with a couple of other Duck stories with art by Paul Murray, Jet Job Joes, and Rules and Regulations, as well as a couple of one-pagers by Tony Strobel. And that's it for Donald Duck in Ancient Persia. We'll see you next time at the Daily Quack.